Welcome to DinkLife. Today we're uncovering the fascinating history of Summit Beach Amusement Park, a nearly forgotten gem from Akron's past. Once a bustling attraction on the east bank of Summit Lake, fondly known as Akron's million-dollar playground, this beloved park has all but vanished. Join us as we step back in time to rediscover what made Summit Beach so special. Summit Lake wasn't always a lake. It started as a swamp, but was deepened when it became part of the Ohio and Erie Canal. The amusement park's origins trace back to 1887 when Akron opened Lakeside Park to encourage Sunday horse car rides to the lakefront. But it wasn't until 1917 that Summit Beach Amusement Park officially opened, inspired by the architectural style of the 1915 San Diego Exposition. Spanning 15 acres, the grand opening drew more than 50,000 visitors. The park's standout attractions included the Crystal Pool, the largest tiled pool in the world at the time, measuring 75 feet by 180 feet, and a massive wooden roller coaster. Summit Beach earned its nickname Million Dollar Playground because in the 1920s, $1 million was a staggering amount. It was the highest grossing amusement park in eastern Ohio, drawing crowds from near and far. Some saw Summit Beach as cheap and gaudy, while others saw it as heaven on earth, a place of joy and excitement. One of the biggest draws was the Wisteria Dance Hall, an enormous ballroom that could hold 5,000 people, measuring 400 feet long by 250 feet wide. It hosted some of the era's most famous bands and performers, alongside the Lake Park Casino, which featured boxing matches, comedians, and other live acts. The Crystal Pool was another highlight, especially since Summit Lake had become heavily polluted from nearby factories, leading to swimming bans and massive fish kills in the early 1920s. Surprisingly, Summit Lake had once served as one of Akron's water sources. By 1942, reports described thick scum covering the water's surface, making canoeing an unpleasant experience. Despite this, boating remained popular, with visitors enjoying leisurely rides on a Summit Queen, a boat that circulated the lake and traveled up the locks to the Young Hotel by Nesmith Lake. However, the park wasn't without tragedy. Just 3 years after opening, a fatal accident on the roller coaster resulted in the deaths of 3 riders. Summit Beach had its share of quirky attractions, too. A chimpanzee once rode around the park on a tricycle, and the carousel featured a brass ring grabber for lucky riders. The Hilarity House offered eerie fun with sneering skeletons, growling ghosts, distorted mirrors, and a massive spinning wheel that sent guests tumbling. On the second floor, an air cannon blasted unsuspecting women's skirts, causing screams and laughter. There was even a small zoo and massive fireworks display over Summit Lake in the summer. The park even featured a motor dome, where daredevil motorcyclists rode along the vertical walls while spectators watched from above. The park thrived through the 1920s and 1930s, but by the 1950s, it faced growing challenges. In 1954, future folk singer Len Chandler made history when he attempted to swim in the Crystal Pool, but was denied entry due to racial segregation. Although others swam freely, the owner told him black patrons were not allowed. With encouragement from his mother, Chandler wrote to the Akron Beacon-Journal, sparking public outrage. The NAACP launched a sting operation, sending interracial couples to the pool to gather evidence of discrimination. Their efforts helped build a lawsuit against the park, marking a pivotal moment in Akron's civil rights movement. Towards the park's later years, it installed the first commercial monorail in the U.S., built in Akron by the Ohio Mechanical Handling Company. When the park closed, the monorail was relocated to Cedar Point. The park also hosted food and home shows, and even became home to the Summit County Fair in its final days. Several factors led to Summit Beach's decline. A devastating fire in 1950 destroyed the dance hall. The iconic Crystal Pool dried up in 1954. The rise of television kept families home. Personal automobiles made larger parks like Cedar Point more accessible. Limited parking hurt attendance, as many had originally arrived by streetcar. By 1957, the park transitioned to a semi-private venue for large picnic groups. Attendance dwindled, and by 1958, the Summit Beach closed for good on Labor Day. 1 year later, another fire destroyed what remained of the concession stands and a warehouse. In 1963, the land was rezoned for redevelopment, sparking controversy. Some argued it should remain a public park, while others saw potential for new housing. By 1964, the Summit Lake Apartments opened, featuring 283 suites across 26 modern brick buildings, with rents starting at $77 to $110 per month for 1 to 3 bedroom units. Today, little remains of Summit Beach Amusement Park except for an old dock and a pump house. Silent reminders of Akron's once thriving playground. Did you know Akron had an amusement park? Have you heard stories about Summit Beach? Let us know in the comments below. Got any quirky Summit County history ideas? We'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more captivating history content. Thanks for watching, and remember to get out there and explore.